Hello, and welcome to the Emotionally Fit Humans podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Taylor. I've designed this podcast to support you in becoming emotionally fit, to deepen the experience of leadership and life. I empower leaders to navigate change, creating trusting, efficient, and confident teams. Specialising in leadership and human behaviour, I know the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves directly impacts the quality of our experiences. Join me on this journey of getting intimate in discovering the amazing human you are to be able to better support those that we lead and care about. Thank you for joining me. Now let's become emotionally fit humans together. Hello, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Emotionally Fit Humans podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Taylor, and it's great to be here with you today. Now, you're going to love this episode, but before I get into that, thank you to all those wonderful people who have subscribed to my YouTube channel or on Apple iTunes and Spotify. Thank you for your support. I've had some great feedback, especially on episode 4, the last episode. So if you wouldn't mind, just take a moment to go back and have a look at those other episodes and ensure that you subscribe to my channel. Now, today's episode is fearing failure is the worst way to be as a leader. And this is a topic that's a bit of a truth bomb because we're talking about something that I know that many leaders wrestle with, and wrestling with fearing failure. But fearing failure is actually the worst way to lead. Yes, I said it. And before the end of this episode, I think you'll agree with me because leading from fear not only hurts you, it hurts your team, your culture, and the ability to grow both. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this episode is that I see you because I've been you, and where I've been in a leadership position fearing failure. Now, so let's get to some honesty here. I get it. I've been the leader who was terrified of making mistakes. I've been the person who stayed up late, overthinking, overanalyzing, trying to prove that I was worthy of my leadership role. And maybe you're sitting there going, yes, that's exactly what's happening with me. You're trying to be the expert at everything. And I know exactly where this starts for many of us. You know, it might start when we're young. When we are children, maybe we were raised where we got praised for being good all the time, or for keeping our room clean, or, for being obedient and following the rules. Maybe you were that people pleaser where you tried to do everything by the book and follow the instructions of those people around you, those respected adults that are around you. Or maybe it was at school where you were trying to get the gold stars or the stamp in your book or those perfect grades, certificates in assemblies, or, I even think about that elusive pen license. I'm wondering if maybe you experienced that too, where you had to write in the lines and perfectly neatly before you could get your pen license. And I know that as an ex-teacher, that's what we used to encourage. Then what happens is that we grow up and it's in the workplace. We hustle hard to prove ourselves. We're terrified or we become scared of doing things wrong because we're taught that making mistakes means that we're not good enough, that we're not capable or not a real leader. And I'm saying that in inverted commas, if you're listening to this episode. So we start believing the story or the narrative that if I fail, that I am a failure, like a failure as a human being. And suddenly we might feel like an imposter. I think of many leaders that I've coached where they start micromanaging everything, or maybe I turn up at their workplace and I witness this. They're trying to check in on everyone all the time. And they literally feel exhausted. They can't rest. And they're pushing, often leaders are pushing themselves to the brink emotionally, physically, and also mentally. So anxiety might be creeping in. They could be feeling burnt out, exhausted, and wondering why leadership feels like, oh, such a heavy drain. And maybe you're sitting there nodding, going, this is exactly how I'm feeling, Lauren. So, why fearing failure is the worst way to lead? Let's have a look at it. This is the hard truth. Fearing failure is not protecting you. It's actually sabotaging you. So let's break this down into 5 key points. And so when we are fearing failure, it kills our innovation. So number 1, it kills innovation. Where we fear failure, we stop experimenting, we avoid that risk taking, and we think we have to play it safe and say no to any new ideas. And so when we start doing this, we actually are avoiding, or we're missing out on our learning experiences and making breakthroughs in our understanding and through taking risks. Number 2 is that it destroys trust. Teams can feel that when their leader is operating from fear, they actually feel it. They feel under pressure to do the same. And when we hide mistakes, when we avoid tough conversations or refuse to own up to our own mistakes or what some people see as failures, we create a culture where it might be based around secrecy and blame, where people try to hide mistakes or don't tell the whole truth about what they tried, what they trialed, and how they didn't get to a result, or might end up starting to blame other people. So it destroys trust within teams. Point number 3 is that it creates burnout. We're constantly chasing this style of perfectionism, and we are exhausted. So leaders who fear failure often end up, as I said, micromanaging, controlling every single detail. They create a team where they have to come and check in with the leader to make certain things. Have I got this right? And they end up working around the clock. So this leads to burnout and often resentment in your team, where people won't even come to you because of fear of retribution of mistakes or the way that they may have trialed to solve problems. So this leads to number 4, where it blocks growth. Failure, I think of children, and you look back on your childhood, and I know a simple metaphor is, how did you learn to ride a bike? Through failure, through making mistakes, through falling off over and over again. And so failure is exactly how we learn, and making mistakes helps that process. When we fear it, when we fear failure, we get stuck in our old patterns and prevent our own evolution as a leader. We won't even trial new things. And so we become stuck or stagnant in our roles. Now, point number 5 is that if we are fearing failure, we are modeling the wrong example of leadership. If you're afraid to fail, your team will be afraid to make mistakes too. So this fear filters down through your team, and suddenly no one is taking initiative or speaking up in meetings or planning sessions with new ideas. So what if failure was actually the way forward? And so let's reframe this right here, right now. What if failure is the pathway? and it inspires you for growth. And I look at one of the most famous, the greatest basketballer of all time, Michael Jordan, and he missed 26 game-winning shots. And he has a saying where he says, I failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed. So he's sharing the fact that failure and making mistakes over and over and over again is the pathway to succeed. Another example of this is Thomas Edison, where it took him over 1,000 times to try to invent the light bulb. And he said that if he didn't fail 1,000 times, he actually found 1,000 times that didn't work. So the truth here is that failure isn't the opposite of success. Failure is the pathway to success. So if we apply this to leadership, leadership isn't about never failing. It's about being willing to fail and fail over and over and over again without losing the passion that you have to learn and grow and your vision of leadership to empower others. So the new way here is that how to lead without fear. And here's what I want you to take away with you today, that failure is feedback. And I know I've had an amazing coach who taught me that feedback is the breakfast of champions. So learning what we're doing wrong or learning through these mistakes gives us the feedback to grow. It's not personal to you as a person. It's just information. How can I use this information to help me grow? And when something doesn't work, it's simply showing you where to grow next or what gaps we have in our leadership or in our team building abilities or in how we plan or how we focus, showing us where we can grow next. Mistakes build resilience. So every time you fail and get back up, we are actually strengthening our emotional fitness. And remember that our emotional fitness is measured in how we handle uncertainties, the inevitable uncertainties that show up in both leadership and our life, how we handle that emotionally. So mistakes and bringing these uncertainties, sometimes consciously, around how can I fail forward, helps to grow our emotional fitness. You set the tone. If you embrace failure with curiosity and courage, building this resilience, your team will be more willing as well. They're willing to go the journey or a different journey, trial new things to grow themselves. And this is where real innovation happens. So you as a leader set the tone. If you're prepared to own up, to show up, to communicate how you trialed things, how you made mistakes along your journey, then your team are going to grow this skill as well. So our willingness beats perfection. Leadership is not about being perfect. And this is where leaders lose a lot of their energy, where they try to keep things sweep things under the carpet if they've made a mistake, or they don't share their learnings in leadership meetings or in team meetings. It's not building this level of resilience, this sense of curiosity and courage in their team. So leadership is not about being perfect, but it is about being willing to keep going, to keep learning and to keep leading, no matter how many times you fall down, And I think of that, falling off the bike and skinning your knee and getting on again. And that's creates more momentum within your team than anything else. That it's the willingness to try and try again to get you to your vision. So leadership is actually a choice. And here's your choice point for today to take away. You can keep fearing failure, keep avoiding risks, and keep holding yourself back, staying stuck in the same exhausting patterns. Or, on the opposite hand, you can choose to lean in. You can choose to lead from courage instead of fear of failure. You can choose to try, to make mistakes, to fail, to learn, to grow. So the question isn't, will I fail? The question is, am I willing to fail forward? And I'd love to know your thoughts on this. So there are 5 ways I'm going to share with you now on how we might stop leading from fear. And number 1 is we're going to normalize failure in your team. So that it sends a powerful message to your team that making mistakes and failure is safe around here. It shifts the culture from perfectionism to growth. So you might start your leadership meeting with a failure share or a mistake share, where we invite everyone in the team, including yourself as a leader, to share a mistake that you thought was a mistake recently and what you learned from it. You might openly admit where you've made a wrong call or model ownership of a mistake without shame. So letting the team know that this is okay because we can share our mistakes, share where we grow or where we're learning, so that it encourages that within our culture. The next way is that we celebrate effort, not just outcomes. When we only celebrate the wins or the results, people become afraid to take risks. And by praising effort, we encourage experimentation and also progress, that we're learning and progressing along this journey, that it's not a end result, that we don't try one thing and then we should be at the result, that then this might take a few times over and over of learning, growing, sharing, and taking the key learnings from those errors to get to the result. So we create an experiment of the month. And I think of a leadership team that I've worked with recently, where they share whether it succeeded or whether they thought it failed. And usually in that experiment, we publicly are recognising people who showed courage and the effort of trialing and being willing to get up and go again, regardless of the result. So that's another way that you can build this willingness to accept failure and mistakes in your leadership. Another way is that we can name your fear and we can invite other people to do the same. So fear thrives, and I think of plants growing, the ecosystem that fear thrives in is in silence. So naming it out loud reduces the power and invites collective problem solving of fear. So how we do this is that we could kick off projects with what are we most afraid of that could happen here. And so this is opening and encouraging that discussion that I might be afraid of, like, does this show that I am not aware of what is going on in my team, or I may need to develop new skills in planning or new skills in project management. So we encourage submissions of fears before big projects, and then we open them and open up and discuss them directly as a group. And so That one, naming your fear, really helps people to share where they're at before you even start in the project or the problem that you're trying to solve. You might also reframe mistakes as the experiments, as what we said. And when we swap out words like failure for experiment or a test, this can make your team feel safer in trialing. Oh, this is going to be a test, or that we're trialing this. And it changes it to be a less personal and more constructive process of providing feedback. And so we're running a test here, or we're trialing this. And when we debrief in these situations, it opens a greater sense of curiosity with questions such as, what did we learn from this? And what went wrong? What could we do better next time? And so it's really encouraging that culture of innovation, shared responsibility, and shared learning that enhances your team culture. We also, another way is that we practice daily self compassion. So, individually and collectively. And I know that when I start a group meeting, sometimes when I work in with their companies, I might start them with their cup of tea, their virtual or imaginary cup of tea around their meeting, and I'm holding mine here, and where we're building trust, empathy, TEA, trust, empathy, and appreciation around the room. And so if we go around that, we're letting go of that judgment of each other. And so we're practicing daily self compassion individually and also collectively in the team. And so we teach this through building emotional fitness and creating a culture of psychological safety. So you might be sharing, what is one thing that you're proud of about yourself this week, so that other people along in the meeting can share where they're feeling proud of. Or share one thing where you felt vulnerable, building empathy. And then other people might chip in and acknowledge where they were in a similar experience. And then appreciation of how we appreciate where other team members are working together or supporting each other. So starting your team members, you're meeting with this tea, this imaginary cup of tea, trust, empathy, and appreciation. You could even make it a monthly team challenge on, sharing failures, celebrating our experiments, or naming fears. And by weaving this in regularly, you'll slowly build a culture within your company or within your team where failure or mistakes actually equals growth. And so I invite you to reframe your language around fearing failure is the worst way to lead. Accepting failure, embracing failure is the best way to lead. It's the best way to build a psychological safe culture, and it's what leads to growth. So accepting mistakes and failure leads to growth. So, if this message speaks to you today, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear some of your experiments that you've tried in your teams of what led to overcoming mistakes and being greater risk takers to solve problems. Uh, Message me on Instagram, and I if you want more tools to help you lead to emotional fitness, make sure that you've subscribed to this Emotionally Fit Humans podcast on YouTube. Until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful fortnight of embracing failure and mistakes in your leadership.